What's up, guys? Hope you are good. Hope you're smashing it, having a great week wherever you are. Couple of updates before we dive into this week's episode. So first, thanks so much for all the feedback, all the DMs. Keep them coming, guest ideas. Bear with us. We will up the production quality as we go. We're just going to execute for now, and week by week increase the quality and hopefully get to some in-person pods. Two other updates. I'm now full-time solopreneur, left my full-time contract, so business is being built. I will give some updates as I can on that side. Definitely some interesting conversations happening, which is awesome. And second thing is we've changed the name of the pod, which is less important for YouTube, but it's Creator Examples on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. The idea being, I want to cover not just the backstory of some of the UK's and the world's best creators and entrepreneurs, but also look at some playbooks and actionable frameworks that if you were starting from zero today that you could implement. And if you've got a business that you can implement immediately. So that's the name change. This week's episode is with a guy called Gabriel Nussbaum, who's grown really quickly on TikTok to over 1 million followers. I think it'd be really interesting if you've ever considered becoming a full-time creator and what that involves, how to hack the TikTok algorithm, how much you can make from brand deals, and his plans for the future. He's a really smart cookie, says some really insightful things, so hopefully you enjoy it. As I say, let's keep the conversation going. Send me a DM, drop a comment, and yeah, hope you're having a great week, and speak soon.
Cool, we're recording. Thank you so much, Gabriel Nussbaum, for joining me. Very excited to talk to you. For those who don't know, Gabriel is a TikToker with over 1 million followers and a following that is growing really quickly. And yeah, I was really keen to talk to you and learn a bit more about your story. This podcast, the idea of it is conversations with creators and entrepreneurs who have maybe taken, I call it the road less traveled. So they've taken an alternative path to perhaps the standard career. And so I'd love to get into a bit of your backstory, what you're up to at the moment, what the future holds for you. And maybe we also cover some frameworks for people who are interested in TikTok and what that platform is as a creator and some of the things that you've learned from being on there. I guess the first question is, how did you get going on this path? How did you end up on TikTok and what are you doing there?
It's a great question, and it all began around the same time as I got my first job on a graduate scheme. I'd always been quite keen to go into content creation in general, and I felt that YouTube was the platform for me to be on. I'd been inspired by a lot of big YouTubers, so I started creating your classic 1 video a week, get out there, try and find your niche. And it was definitely done predominantly with a hobby at the forefront of my mind and trying to learn a new skill and take on that journey rather than thinking it would grow into anything incredible. But of course, I knew that was a potential with going into social media. So I always kept that at the back of my mind. And then about 6 months down the line, and maybe about 400 subscribers in, which I was already very happy with. I thought that was a great number with the amount of time and effort I put into YouTube. TikTok was starting to become a bit more onto my radar. I'm sure it was on plenty of other people's radars far long before I got into it. But I saw the opportunity to create shorter form content. And I think for me, it was also the opportunity to spend less time editing videos because I was going down from 10 to 15 minute talking head videos down to 30-second videos. And obviously trying to work full time on the side as well. I was like, this could be a win-win if this works well. So I started to create videos in the finance niche. That was where my YouTube had evolved to over the 6 months to be more finance related. Tried one style of content based off a guy called Tejas. He's a US based creator. I mimicked his style of delivery, but obviously was delivering my own information. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of the way that I actually have evolved my content. And obviously, as part of creating on TikTok, you also consume a lot of TikTok, which happens quite naturally for a lot of people these days. And I consumed enough to the point where I noticed these conversational video styles doing really well in educational topics, especially surrounding finance. So I thought, let me give that a go. It was about maybe my 12th, 15th video, and I was trying to create 6 a week. So we'd been on TikTok for about 2 to 3 weeks. Made one conversational style video, and I woke up slash the next day it had along the lines of 50,000 views. Bearing in mind I was getting 300-400 on every. It's like, cool, that's a nice feeling. That seems to have done it. If it was a fluke, try another one. 15,000. I was like, it's not 50, but that's still incredible. And tried the third one, and I think I went to like within 24 hours, it was on 300,000. And I was like, okay, I'm definitely onto a winning formula. And it's evolved into a bit of a beast since then.
So talk to me a little bit about the speed of the growth. So you go from posting that one video, you get 50,000 views or 10,000 views for the second one. How quickly do you acquire followers over the next couple of weeks and months? And how much content are you putting out?
I was, pardon me, I was aiming to put out roughly 6 a week, give myself a rest day here or there just to keep it going. And I think I was fairly consistent in that time. And I believe that I started right at the end of March, and by the end of April, I'd hit 100,000 followers, which is absolutely crazy. But the more I learn and understand TikTok, I understand that one video can gain you 30, 40,000 followers. So there were days where I was picking up 20,000 followers plus in a single day, which is absolutely mind-boggling. I tried not to focus on the numbers and just keep creating content because that's what I was enjoying to do. You don't ever want to stop and look at what's going on because you'll get distracted far too easily.
I think it's interesting. A lot of people, they might have had that one video or the 2 videos pop off and then they stop. So why did you just keep hammering away at it? Were you really enjoying it, or did you know like this is a moment and I need to capture as much of this value as I can and keep the momentum? Like, why were you thinking like that?
I suppose it was a mix. So there's the one side of it that you see results coming through, and that obviously gives you a bit more of an adrenaline boost. But I'd always had this mindset based off kind of creators that I'd followed that it's all about consistency and turning up, and that's the most magical special ingredient when it comes to anything on social media. You have to just keep creating consistently. So whilst these numbers were coming through and they were enjoyable to see, I remembered that my foundation was to create consistent content and enjoy it along the way, and try not to base my emotions too much off the numbers, because then when the numbers stop one day, which they inevitably always, you're going to stop creating content. So you can't link the two together, because otherwise you're signing up for a bad ending to your story. So yeah, it was definitely more a mindset thing than watching the numbers.
Yeah. Cool. And where are you now with it? So you've got over 1 million followers. You're still creating consistently, but you're still working a day job, right?
Yes, so I'm still working a 9 to 5. It's a graduate scheme in kind of like the finance industry, and that's not something that I wanted to give up just yet, but I'm slowly being persuaded more and more to potentially do that. I'm currently also sitting on 1.2 million followers on TikTok, which is crazy. Growth has slowed down, as I knew it always would at one point, but the size is already unfathomable to me, so I'm not concerned about growth anymore. I'm just enjoying the fact that there's content I'm putting out that people are interested in watching, and that I'm hopefully helping people with my content, because that's the core essence of what I create. And I'm also at the point where I'm trying to go down different avenues now. I know that I'm not always going to be motivated to keep creating in the same style. So if I can change up different styles, I also can't create to the same consistency as I was before, because I was putting all of my effort into one thing, whereas now I'm trying to diversify. So I know I'm not going to be able to put out 6 a week. If I can do 3 to 4 videos on TikTok a week, I deem that as a successful week. And I'm just at the point now where in my mind, I'm trying to just evolve content to the point where I can make it sustainable in the long run.
Yeah, it's a full-time job, isn't it? And that is to have a full-time job and then the TikTok, but the relentlessness of as you say, basically you have to just keep going and keep going. How have you dealt with that? Have you not burnt out? Yeah, like just hit a wall with it. It's relentless. And the other thing I've noticed on TikTok as well is the feedback is not always good. A lot of the comments and stuff is, you look stupid, you're an idiot, or like, this is basic knowledge, or this is too complicated. Like, it can be like an amazing platform, but I've also noticed that if you read too deeply into the comments, just personally with a few videos I've put out with this podcast, you're like, wow, like where did that come from? And you're like, why would I bother putting out another one? So how have you dealt with that side of it?
Yeah, the comments have never phased me. I reply to the positive ones, and if the negative ones are funny, then I will probably share them with my friends to be like, look at this. And if they're maybe on the more aggressive side, then they'll just be blanked completely. It's just something that's never really phased me.
Yeah.
What's it called? Bad press is still press, and it still shows that there
Yeah.
are people watching. Remember, people say you've made it when you've got your first bad, like, negative comment. So I guess that means that we've both made it if we're both getting negative comments. So like I said, it's letters on a screen. I try to read as many comments as I can, but I will never let them affect me either way. I like the positive ones, and if there's a negative one, it's whatever. It goes into the wind for me. And then I suppose in terms of your other question, burnout, I've experienced like full burnout, but I've definitely experienced forms of it. So I remember early on, if I was ever taking a holiday or knew that I was going to be away from being able to create, I tried to have like content in store, even if it was like 1 or 2 days. I made sure I had a video to post every single day, regardless of where I was going to be. And I remember actually going on my first longer holiday that was like for 10 days. And I was actually quite worried because I've got about 4 pieces of content in the bank. I do want to film a bit whilst I'm away, but then by the time I've edited and put it out, I'm going to probably go maybe a week without posting or something like that, if not longer. And so maybe that was forced upon me by lack of planning. But I suppose that I'm now in the position where I know that consistency is king, and I'm still like trying to make sure that up to the level of consistency that I'm choosing. But I'm never afraid to take a break because I know that ultimately I not continue creating if I'm not enjoying it and I don't have a good headspace for it. There are other aspects of my life that are just as important. So I went on another holiday. I sound like I go on holidays all the time. This is over the space of a year and a half. So I don't go on that many holidays. But I went on another one for 2 weeks, and I just decided, you know what? I'm just going to leave my profile for 2 weeks. It's fine. Nothing's going to happen. It'll be there. And maybe that's more of a luxury to having that level of followers, because I knew that I've done a lot of the hard work. And maybe if you go back to the early stages when I was trying to grow the page a lot more aggressively, I might not have taken up the same mindset. But I do think it is important to take that rest and to make sure that you're creating at a level that won't burn you out. So if you're pushing yourself to 7 videos a week and you knowing that you can't keep that up, maybe just drop to 5, create a routine that is good for you, because consistency at 5 a week is still consistency.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Coming on to the money side of TikTok, as you're coming up, you're getting hit up for brand deals. I think we've spoken before, and in the early stages, maybe brands are reaching out and they're taking advantage of you. It's a common story with creators. But if you're working with brands on TikTok, there's also, I think, this narrative that you're printing money, like creators with their brand deals are earning tens of thousands of pounds or millions of pounds. But I think the reality is perhaps not that. Can you talk a little bit about the money side and brand deals and like how all that side of it works?
Absolutely. Yeah. Predominantly, pretty much all of the money that I've made through TikTok, like you mentioned, has come through brand deals. I am part of the creator fund on TikTok, but it's pennies against the pound when it comes to, or cents against the dollar, wherever you're listening to this. And then early on, yeah, because it was completely new to me, when the first company emailed me and offered me $100 to post a video about them, I was jumping at that opportunity. I didn't know the value. I was trying to Google how much should I be charging with this many followers? And then every website gave you a bracket that was like from $100 to $1,000. And I was like, there's clearly no formula. So I slowly tried to sneakily increase my rate here and there. And then I was actually fortunately signed by an agency, or I had an agency reach out to ask if they can take that side of it from me back in August of 2021, last year. And I think I spoke to them briefly and realized straight away how how much I was undervaluing myself. To that point, I think the most I charged a brand was maybe like £700-800, and they were like, you should be opening at like minimum, like somewhere in the 4, 5, 6,000 with your level of followers. And not necessarily that you're going to get every brand at that rate. You might go down, but want to work with that brand because you feel like that's worth it. But those numbers straight away, I was like, are you serious? That's actually worth it. And it's incredible because the majority of creators are not like represented by agencies. You try and share this information, but there's just so many creators out there that are willing to do it for, like I said, same as me, willing to do it for that lower price. I think brands know this and they're a little bit cheeky, but because TikTok is such a new platform that it is evolving. When you go to a platform like YouTube and there's a known rate for a brand when it comes to, if you're in this field with this many followers, you charge this much for a brand deal. But TikTok's been around for coming up to almost 20 years now. Not TikTok, YouTube, whereas TikTok is 5 years old, something like that. So as it evolves, I assume that like brands and creators will start to be aware of the value a little bit more. But yeah, at this point, I've seen creators with 200,000 followers charging more than I was charging at 1 million followers. So it's all up in the air. But now I'm hopefully at a bit more of a consistent rate, and I'm trying to make sure that I'm working, like I said, not in the millions, but like I know that the value of my creation is at least a couple of thousand per brand deal that I make.
Yeah. And when you're working with these brand deals, those kind of amounts, £5,000-6,000, that's not for one video, is it?
It can be. It really does vary. And if you strike gold, if you speak to any of the US based content creators, I've spoken to some around my follower range that have charged upwards of $10,000 for a single video. It all depends on the brand and what they're after, and I suppose also the area that you're working in. So I'm in finance, which is quite well known as a profitable area for big spending brands. And then it can also vary because you can charge more if you give these packages across. If you say, I'll give you 3 videos and 2 Instagram reels and all this kind of stuff as a large deal. But yeah, the numbers do sometimes reach in the UK. I think I'm happy to share numbers because why be someone that talks about finance without being able to actually share the numbers? I think that my biggest deal to date was probably £6,000 for a single video. That is to show that not all of my videos are of that range, and most of them are actually nowhere near that range when it comes to a brand deal, but there are those opportunities out there, and that does show you that's clearly the value that I could and should be striving for.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think I'd love to come on to your style. Maybe we do that next, actually, because it's a really interesting style that I know you've used. I know some other people have grown really quickly, but the thing about TikTok, and particularly your style of video as well, is it's the type of thing where in 30 seconds, you can tell someone about something and inspire them to take action immediately in a way that I think pretty much no other platform does in the same way. A YouTube ad is in the middle of a video and you just want to keep watching the video. Whereas with TikTok, like that video, that 30 seconds, you can go from not knowing about something or an app or a service to taking action. So I can absolutely believe you'd be paid that much money or and earn even more for one video. But let's get onto your style then, because it's conversational. There's often 2 characters. I'm sure if you're on TikTok, you've come across these types of videos, and there is something about them, me just watching them, like you just stay for the end. But how do you think about that style? And yeah, like why do you think it works so well?
That's a good question. To try and break it down, I suppose the first thing is people like to be intrusive and listen in on other people's conversation. I think that's just a natural condition that we have as humans. And even if I suppose that conversation is with yourself, you're still listening in on someone else. It's like being a fly on the wall during someone else's conversation. And I think that's quite an attractive style. Maybe if you break down the psychology, I haven't looked into it or studied it, but I feel like there's definitely something. Another aspect with TikTok is you have very like short attention spans, and it's all about grabbing someone's attention and holding it. And so if you're going back and forth in a question, like I suppose, again, you're having 1-2 seconds, someone's attention. Okay, switch, 1-2 seconds. So you're keeping their attention by constantly, you'll see it with people maybe more artistically changing frame or changing the angle of their camera every 2 seconds, or having something appear on the screen in terms of a picture or something like that. Just something else that will grab someone in the audience's attention for that extra 2 seconds and keep them watching a little bit longer in the video to help with the algorithm. So I suppose conversational style does that naturally by just switching frame every 2 to 3 seconds. And that probably does help with TikTok. And then again, the structure is probably just one again that's going to help. you've got your hook in there straight away, because the first thing in the conversation you hear is the problem. Then you hear them take on that problem a little bit longer. Then you hear the solution at the end. And then if you can keep them on long enough for them to hear the line at the end, where you're like, and follow this account for more, which every person who's seen the conversational style on TikTok knows this, and they're probably annoyed by it. And to be honest, my friends take the mick out of me. They're like, hey, do you follow Gabriel Nussbaum? Because that's the line at the end. But if you can get into that final line as well, that's the call to action. And that's where you get the actual transition into followers.
Yeah. I love that. I love that line as well. It's that thing, isn't it, where you cringe inside when you're doing it, but I'm sure like it's the classic. The numbers speak for themselves. If you don't ask, you don't get. It obviously works. What's your most viewed video, and why do you think that is?
So my most viewed video today is called How to Cool Down During the Summer. Don't ask why. I know that majority of my videos are finance-based, but I suppose I gave myself license after I started to do well to explore different avenues and just try and educate people on anything at some point, and trying to see what kind of interested me and help me create more content. And then I think we were in the middle of a heat wave in the UK, and I was thinking to myself, the majority of houses in the UK, surprise it or not, don't have air conditioning. There's no AC here. And also a lot of people don't own a fan, which is another thing, even though that was one of the tips in my video, but it's not quite as simple as just like turn on a fan. And even with a fan on, sometimes you're still sweltering when it comes to a heat wave. So it was a bit of research. I think I spent an hour looking into different cool ideas and methods and like scientific proof as to kind of other ways to cool you down. Put 3 of them in a video, posted it during a heat wave, and that went to, like I said, 11.5 million views. Probably gained me the most followers that I'd ever been able to get. And I think it was down to, I call it like the 3 ingredient magical recipe or whatever it is, which was, it was actionable video. So I was doing a video, it was concise, there was no wasted words in it, and it was relevant. So it was during a heat wave, people were hot, they clearly were watching these videos and interested in it and could relate to it. And then it was actionable. So it actually had things that people could do, which meant that you're probably watching it, you watched it through once, you're like, oh, that's a good video. Wait a second, let me actually watch that again because I'm hot right now and I actually want to watch it. Oh, let me quickly share that with a friend because they've just complained to me how hot they are. Oh, let me just save it as well for later. And let me just write a quick comment as well saying, oh, this actually worked for me, or that's a rubbish tip, or it would never work. And all of that kind of feedback adds together to create you a viral video. And yeah, I know, like I said, it's not finance-based, which is what the majority of my content is, but that's what happens.
Yeah, I guess if you're sat in TikTok HQ and that video hits the algorithm, it gives it everything it needs. Like, people are sharing it, that's inviting more users to TikTok. There's engagement from the comments, they're liking it to save it and then take action later that day. And yeah, all of those ingredients combined is really smart formula. Is that how you think about your videos going forward? What's your production process look like for creating these videos on a weekly basis?
I definitely have it in mind, but unfortunately it's not always as easy as that. I try to do things like keep my eye on the news and try to see what's like trending topics, because if you can create a video based around that will obviously do well. And then try to keep my videos short and concise and to the point, again, like I'm always doing. So I do keep that recipe in mind. And even if I get all 3 of those ingredients, again, it doesn't necessarily mean anything. I could be completely wrong with my estimation of what makes a good video. And I might be saying absolutely rubbish to you here today. But when I am creating, like I said, it's a mixture of wanting to do things that will go like trend and do well. But also I like to create content that I know I'll enjoy to create. Because if I'm just constantly going for that virality in that video that I know the algorithm will love, yes, I'll get followers, but I'll probably give up after 3 months because I'll just fall out of love with the process. So it's finding that right balance of virality and passion project. And I actually probably lean even more towards passion project because like I said, I'm very content with the growth I've had. I'm overwhelmed by 1.2 million followers and kind of going to take the opportunity to now create content that I want to. And I hope I'm giving myself that license.
Yeah, I think I've heard Ali Abdaal talk about that recently, maybe for some periods going like too far to pander to the audience and to the platform and then losing sight of what you actually want to create. And I think there's another good framework I've heard from a guy called George Mack, which is like, what are you really optimizing for? Is it the views, or is it like the comments, the DMs, the kind of meaningful interactions? Because it's easy to blow up a video on a controversial subject because that's what people are going to jump on. But is that actually going to do what you want it to do? And now are you actually going to be proud of that content? So I think you hit the nail on the head. In terms of then your aspirations, like you talked about TikTok is like this great platform that you've built, but if you were to like go all in on this, like what would be the kind of vision you'd want to build? You've talked about YouTube, I think you've got a newsletter on the go as well. There are so many ways that creators are taking what starts as building an audience around a topic or an interest that they have. There's so many ways to go. Do you have a vision for that, or are you just taking it one step at a time?
I would say I probably have a short to medium term vision. I don't know quite what I'll be doing in 5 years. I don't have a 5-year plan or anything like that, but definitely, like you mentioned, to expand where my content's going out. So YouTube was always the passion project. That's where it started. I do love long form content. I know I complain about the editing, but you get all your information across, whereas in TikTok, you have to pick and choose what you're saying. YouTube, you get the freedom to just say it how you want to say it. So that's definitely the platform that I would love to like revitalize and push more of my time towards. And like I said, hopefully with more time, I can explore more passions. So the newsletter is something that I'm trying to build. A, it's as a habit, but B, I see it benefiting all the other areas, because I can write a newsletter on a topic, break that down into 5 TikToks, and then make a YouTube video on the same topic. So it's kind of helping my writing, helping my scripting, and helping everything else, and another good way to share information in another format. And then beyond that, it's all a little bit more blurry. I know that I love teaching and I love educating people. I'm also keen to, like we're doing today on this podcast, take on opportunities to actually share and educate people on how they can do it themselves, if that's something they're interested in. Whether that's through coaching or creating programs or just creating like free resources and things like that. I'm a firm believer on just teaching people how to get from level 0 to level 1. That's what I do in terms of the finance, but it can be anything, to be honest. The moment I learn something, you're in a position to teach it, because I've learned it now, but someone else doesn't know that topic. The latest thing that comes to mind is I'm currently in the process of potentially getting a mortgage and buying my first property. Now, I was just thinking the other day whilst doing that, shouldn't I be teaching people what I'm doing whilst I'm learning how to do that for the first time? Because I'm coming across new things. So then I was like, oh, maybe I should make a series and put that on TikTok. Maybe I should make a YouTube series and put that out there. Or is that maybe my next newsletter goes out, next week's issue is like, this week I've done this in terms of doing this. So I'm always someone that's learning. And if you're always learning, there's always something to teach. And where that takes me in 5 years, we both have the same idea and prospect of what that will be.
Nice one. No, it sounds good. I'm excited, man. I think there's so much potential, and I think your content is really great. It's really like informative, and it does exactly what you say, which is that educates people on topics that aren't talked about enough, unfortunately. And when they are talked about, is maybe not in the most digestible forms. So a lot of people do get left behind, and I think what you're building is really cool. Let's wrap up with a couple of quick ones. What would you say to someone who's thinking about starting a TikTok? They've heard the hype. They've heard that you can grow to like 1 million followers in a couple of in a few months. Like, what would be the few bits of wisdom you'd give them?
Don't focus on the numbers. I got lucky. I've got to be honest. Like, it's a mixture of luck, but if you're in it for the numbers, you'll probably end up losing, getting bored, giving up, all those kind of things. So don't create for the numbers, create for the passion of the topic that you want to talk about. That would definitely be advice number 1. Number 2, I think we spoke about it and I said the word about 93 times in the first half of this call, but consistency. If you are passionate about creating content on social media, pick your level of consistency. If it's 1 a week, if it's 5 a week, if it's 10 a week, whatever platform you're on, just make sure that you're constantly turning up to that audience. And just, I suppose, the third thing is be in it for the long run. If this is something that you're really passionate about, just understand that you're learning new skills, you're networking, you're meeting new people, you're putting out something as a bit of a passion project. And if that passion project turns into a business, great. And if it doesn't, then maybe reassess it. If that is the ultimate goal, is to turn your passion into a business, give it a proper amount of time. I'm a firm believer in growing wealth and not becoming rich, because people are so keen on these kind of like quick fixes, become a millionaire in a week, take this course on my YouTube, on every YouTube advert. Like in 2 weeks, if you do follow this 5-step program, you'll have $20,000 dollars in your account. It doesn't work like that. And ultimately, 2 to 3 years of your life is not a long time in the grand scheme of things. And imagine if you stuck at something for 2 to 3 years. I think you brought him up. Ali Abdal says his secret recipe is pick a niche and make a video every week on YouTube for 2 years. And people are like so turned off. They're like, 2 years? Are you crazy? I think of 2 years as the shortest, like 2 years minimum. So that would be my tip. And constantly learn, evolve, know that your content's going to be rubbish at the beginning and it's going to get better as you go on. I still think my content is rubbish, and I'm sure that it will get a lot better. And then in a year's time, I'll look back and think, oh, that was rubbish. And then in a year after that, I'll look back at that year's time and think, so it's all a journey. It's all a learning process. But if there's enjoyment there, you'll stick to it. And I think that's the best recipe for success.
Awesome. And last one, just who are the 1, 2, or 3 people you're following on that platform or other platforms where you're getting your inspiration from, whether it be the content they're creating or just the things they talk about? Who would you be your recommended follow?
I always shout out Abdal. I think I followed his content for so long. He's on YouTube, a big YouTuber, and just the way that he's evolved his content, he shares a lot of educational free resources as well. He's grown over the past few years into a massive business, so he's definitely number 1 inspiration. Ooh, number 2 and 3. I think if you look at people like, I know this might be a bit childish, but if you like people like the Sidemen on YouTube, they were the reason that I got so addicted to YouTube back in the day. Exactly. So I know that I don't create in their style at all, but I suppose I do have to say a bit of a thank you because they were there at the very beginning and they're still turning up consistently. So that just shows you they're still doing it and they're still working hard. So why shouldn't anyone else who's trying to go to that level? And then I'm trying to think of a good third one, maybe from TikTok perhaps, but I suppose I've actually never spoken to him or networked with him, but the guy who I said Tejas, maybe we'll put it in the notes afterwards. He's on TikTok. Yeah. He's a US-based creator. I suppose the fact that I saw his style and I mimicked him in the first case, that was the first style of content I put out. It was because I really enjoyed the content he was doing and the style he was doing it and just how educational he was being. And I still think his content is brilliant today. So there you go. He's definitely inspired me to get onto TikTok and put my information out there.
They're all solid. I would recommend all of those. Awesome, man. Thank you so much for doing this. This was really enlightening and I really enjoyed it. So thank you so much.